In Islamic jurisprudence, impurity is governed as a specific physical and chemical reality, rather than merely a spiritual metaphor. The baseline state of impurity is known as najis. This term classifies a substance that is inherently and permanently impure at its core. Feces, for example, is najis, removed from a surface. This contrasts with the secondary state, mutanajis. This occurs when a fundamentally pure substance, like clean water or fabric, becomes contaminated through contact with a najis agent. Because mutanajis is an acquired state of contamination, the process is reversible. The pure base can be mathematically and physically separated from the contaminant, forming the mechanical basis for all rules of purification. These mechanics are most clearly seen in fluid dynamics. Water serves as the jurisprudential baseline for demonstrating how these laws operate. To remain pure when in contact with an impurity, water must reach a volumetric threshold known as the 2 kula, or approximately 2 kulas. Any contact with an impurity renders a volume of water smaller than this threshold completely mutanajis. The law is rigid here. The water becomes legally impure even if it retains perfect visual clarity. A lack of foul odor also fails to save subthreshold water. Contact alone dictates the legal status. However, a volume above the 2 kula mark can absorb the impurity. It remains legally pure unless the contaminant is significant enough to change the water's color, taste, or smell. Reversing this contamination requires adding enough pure water to dilute the mixture until the total volume exceeds the 2 kula mark and the physical traces of the impurity vanish. Fluid purification is a system of volume thresholds and mathematical dilution. This raises the question of how this logic translates to solid matter, such as the skin of a dead animal. Moving from fluids to solids introduces new complexities, particularly when attempting to purify an animal hide. The governing legal maxim is at tabiu tabiun, which states that a part of an object follows the legal status of the whole. Since a biological corpse is inherently impure, its skin is classified as najis by default. The impurity originates from within the tissue itself. Despite this, classical texts like Ibn Qasim's Fathul Qarib historically categorized dead skin as mutanajisa, implying the impurity was merely acquired. In his commentary, Sheikh al-Bajuri corrected this error to maintain the Shafi'i school's logical consistency, explicitly reclassifying the hide as najis. Al-Bajuri's reasoning is that while the animal was pure while living, death changes its ontological category. The carcass becomes a source of inherent impurity. Because the dead skin is inherently najis, simple washing is ineffective. The impurity is embedded in the hide, requiring a complete chemical transformation to remove it. That transformation occurs through samak, or tanning. This is the specific exception allowed by the law to purify a najis solid. Samak targets foodla, excess materials harboring decay. The first component is residual blood trapped in the skin's matrix. Second is subcutaneous fat, which putrefies. Finally, the tanner removes sweat glands and moisture vectors that sustain bacterial life. To eliminate these elements, the tanner uses an acidic or astringent agent known legally as harif. Classical texts point to natural sources for this agent, such as the astringent compounds found in crushed walnut leaves. The harif agent itself can be a najis substance, like acidic pigeon droppings. The law permits this because the goal is the chemical destruction of decay-producing matter, resulting in a pure, stable membrane. These traditional tanning vats demonstrate the law's material requirements. Samak strips away the biological vectors of decay to reach a state of legal purity. The Shafi'i school enforces these rules by examining the physical texture of the finished hide. For a hide to be pure, all original hair, fur, and scales must be removed. The Shafi'i school classifies these external features as fudla, meaning they must be eliminated during tanning. This creates a conflict with modern luxury goods, such as this crocodile skin bag, where the textured scales are the primary aesthetic feature. Because the scales are intentionally retained for their commercial value, the tanning process is considered legally incomplete under Shafi standards. Consequently, a strict Shafi practitioner cannot wear or prey upon these items. Since the scales remain, the bag is still legally najis. In this school, legal purity requires the removal of the animal's original morphological identity, prioritizing chemical thoroughness over the item's appearance. There are biological limits to this process. Tanning cannot purify every species. The hides of dogs and pigs are subject to an immutable exclusion. They can never be purified, regardless of the intensity of the chemical tanning. This exclusion extends to genetics, applying to any hybrid offspring resulting from a dog or pig mating with a pure animal. The Bathyrusa provides a real-world example of these genetic complexities. Its pig-like features require jurists to carefully evaluate its lineage. If the animal is classified as a pig, its skin is considered permanently impure, placing it outside the reach of purification laws. For these specific genetic lines, the not-just state is inseparable from their essence, making even the most thorough tanning process irrelevant. For the modern practitioner, navigating a world filled with aesthetically tanned leathers requires specific jurisprudential tools. The concept of haja, or societal need, acts as a mechanism to reduce the friction between strict legal requirements and the realities of modern economic life. Haja is distinct from darura, which refers to life or death necessity. It allows for pragmatic flexibility in situations that would otherwise be extremely difficult to navigate. Under the principle of haja, a Shafi'i practitioner may adopt the more lenient Maliki view regarding leather goods. Unlike the Shafi'i school, the Maliki view permits the retention of animal hair and scales after tanning. Haja provides the legal justification for choosing this more flexible path. Ultimately, Islamic jurisprudence functions as an interlocking matrix of logical rules, rather than a collection of arbitrary hurdles. The laws of Tahara function through a system of rigorous physical classification. They balance the need for material stability with the practical intellectual flexibility required for daily life.